Good day, everyone. We would like to start off today's Orange Shirt Every Child Matters virtual honoring with an opening prayer from Elder Daryl Belgard from Little Black Bear First Nation. We would like to acknowledge that we are on Star Blanket Cree Nation's land, which is situated on Treaty 4 territory, home of the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Dakota, the Nakota, and the homeland of the Metis Nation. We would also like to advise of possible trigger warnings for our audience for today's program. The Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available 24 hours for anyone experiencing pain or distress as a result of topics discussed today. Their number is 1-866-925-4419. Ambawashte, everyone. Ambawashte, translated into the Nakota language, means it's a good day. Bonjour and hello. My name is Cherish Jean-Baptiste, and it is my pleasure to serve as MC for today's virtual event. A little bit about me. I am a proud member of Carry the Kettle, Nakota Nation. I am also the manager of Indigenous Strategy and Engagement at SAS Gaming, which operates Casinos Regina and Moose Jaw. I am also a descendant of a residential school survivor. My mother attended LeBret Indian Residential School from 1970 to 1980. I stand with you all today to honor her, the children who never made it home, and the survivors who lived to share their stories. I would like to provide you with a little bit of background on why we're here today and why we are wearing orange shirts. Orange Shirt Day is observed each year on September 30th. Orange shirts were chosen as a sign of support based on the story of Phyllis Webstad from Dog Creek First Nation, British Columbia. Phyllis was sent to the St. Joseph Mission outside of Williams Lake, British Columbia in 1973 at the age of 6. For her first day at school, Phyllis proudly wore an orange shirt that her grandmother had managed to save money for to buy her, only to have the mission staff take it away and force her to wear a school uniform. The first Orange Shirt Day event was started on September 30th, 2013. The residential school system lasted for over 160 years, from early 1830s to 1996. At its peak in the 1930s, 80 residential schools operated across Canada with an enrollment of 170,000 students. Fast forward to 2021. On May 28, 2021, 215 remains of children, some as young as 3 years old, were recovered at Kamloops Indian Residential School. On June 23, 2021, 751 unmarked graves were recovered on Cadmus First Nation in Saskatchewan near the Maryville Indian Residential School site. On June 30th, 2021, the Lower Kootenay Band reported the recovery of 182 unmarked graves on Ixana Nation near St. Eugene's Mission School, near Cranbrook, British Columbia. That number of confirmed unmarked graves continues to grow, with 38 in Regina, Saskatchewan, 35 on Muskowgan First Nation, Saskatchewan, 160 on Penlacoot Island, British Columbia, 104 in Brandon, Manitoba, 161 in Fort Providence, Northwest Territories, 39 in Dunbow, Alberta, and 74 in Battleford, Saskatchewan. These numbers do not include the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report of 3,213 missing children. In addition, Native American tribes have also begun their own ground-penetrating radar searches of children who attended the United States' Indian boarding schools. They include 21 from Grand Junction, Colorado, 227 from Mount Pleasant, Michigan, 189 from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, 50 from Rapid City, South Dakota, 104 from Haskell, Kansas, 200 from Carson City, Nevada, 222 from Chemwaka, Oregon, 67 from Newkirk, Oklahoma, and 67 from Riverside, California. There were 139 residential schools in Canada and 367 Indian boarding schools in the United States. As of September 2021, this number in Canada is estimated at 6,218 recoveries, and in the United States at 1,079 recoveries of unmarked graves. Today and tomorrow, being Canada's first National Truth and Reconciliation Day, is a day to honor and remember those children who did not make it home and the survivors of Canada's residential school system. It is time for survivors to tell their stories and for us to listen with not only open minds, but with open hearts as well. With that, we would like to take a moment of silence for the children who did not make it home from residential schools and the Indian boarding schools, as well as for their survivors, their descendants, and their communities. At this time, I would ask Red Dog to perform an honor song in remembrance of those children who did not make it home. Grandma Wopitatonka to Red Dog for the honor song. Throughout today's virtual honoring, we will be featuring short video clips of cyclist Bialing Tony, a 20-year-old settler from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, who cycled 3,000 kilometers over 24 days to visit 20 residential schools in Saskatchewan. At each residential school, he delivered a pair of baby moccasins. At this time, we would like to introduce you to a residential school survivor, Elder Lorna Standing-Ready. Elder Lorna Standing-Ready is a direct descendant of one of the Treaty 4 negotiators, Kanahachapao, skillful archer of Treaty 4, and great niece of Chief Papikasis, a son of Kanahachapao. She is a 10-year Indian residential school survivor and attended 3 residential schools in PA and Manitoba that were operated by Anglican, United, and Presbyterian churches. She participated in the Truth and Reconciliations process. Lorna was also a 60s Scoop foster child in Saskatchewan. She has served in many organizations, including Spring Free from Racism, often bringing recognition and awards. Today, Lorna offers her services as an elder and knowledge keeper to churches, educational institutions, and community organizations.
Danse, hello. My name is Lorna Standing-Ready. That's what I'm known as. My name before I was married was Lorna Kiwaitan. Kiwaitan meaning north wind. And now today I can proudly say, my name is Notagabe Dadmiu Muskiki, old woman who brings good medicine. At one time, I wasn't allowed to talk my language, and I've forgotten, but really I haven't. I need to dig deep further into the back of my brain, my mind, and it comes slow but sure. So that is who I am. I've come full circle from being and having and living my old way in the big bush on Papikasis Indian Reserve. Yes, it's been a long journey. And as a residential school survivor, that's what they call me. I've lived through 3 of them. I'm a government ward. I'm a ward of the government, the federal government, as I remember my dad signing a long paper to send me away to school. If he didn't do that, they would starve. They wouldn't get their rations. So I had to leave. That's another story of how I was taken away from my mom. But with the recent discovery of the 215 children found in Kamloops, British Columbia, when I heard that, it just seemed unreal, because I've known that all along. There were children in the ground at one of the schools where I attended. It was news to the world. And finally, someone is listening, someone is working. And much thanks, miigwech, to the people in Kamloops for opening up the minds and the eyes of all in this world. So I've been blessed to live this long, to know that our little ones will be found. And how does this affect the indigenous community? I can only speak as I talked with other elders, shaking our heads and thinking, talking. There are more. There are more. We need to bring them home. We need to give them the proper ceremonies so that they will rest now. They'll come home and rest in a good way, knowing that they were loved. Yes, their little spirits will be alive when they come home. And how does it affect the trauma? We will live with trauma for the rest of our lives, but we will work with it. We will respect it, and we will learn from it. We will help one another as we tell our stories. They must be told. Stories from the heart. Stories that are hurting, yet stories that can make us stronger. We've come this far. We need to go further. Yes, we need to go further, hand in hand, with the expectation of the future, working together, understanding our stories, for we each have stories, and we each must learn from one another, but more so from the traditional point of view, from the heart, from Shamanatu, who brought us this far and will take us further on with the journey of life. This is all I got to say for now. Ekoshe, ekoshe, megochi, megochi. Hi, 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 hi.
Day 2, just leaving George Gordon. I got stung in the face by a wasp.
Children right from wrong, and they took him from his mother's hand. He was gone.
This was, as you can see, the old kitchen.
He could not fancy dance, he could not sing. He was told that it was a sin. Sometimes he'd fly out on the eagle's wing. The sky is clearing and the night is bright. The sun will become the burning sun. Rejoice, rejoice, we have no choice but to carry on. The fortunes of fables are able. Now witness the quickness
So freaking generous.
which we
Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. darling, the smiles returning to the face.
I kind of forgot the police were escorting me and blew the stop sign.
Since it's been here, here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's all. the sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country.
Our next guest speaker that we are going to present is Chief Cadmus Delorme from Cadmus First Nation. Chief Delorme recently said, "We all inherited this. Nobody today created residential schools. Nobody today created the Indian Act. Nobody today created the 60 Scoop. But we all inherited it. And we just have to acknowledge that people are healing and people are hurting. Let's do something about it." Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Cadmus Delorme.
Tapwe Poko Mio Kisagao. In Korea, I just said it's a beautiful day. Cadmus Netisi Kasu Kausis Uchinia. My name is Chief Cadmus Delorme. I'm from the Cadmus First Nation. I thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time today to share such an important day that I personally celebrate 365 days a year. Phyllis, a grandmother in British Columbia, started Orange Shirt Day in the early 2000s. She is a survivor of a residential school in British Columbia. When she was a little girl, her grandmother, her last memory of her grandmother was her grandmother put an orange shirt on her as Phyllis was forced to go to residential school against her will and her family's will, as every survivor had to experience at one time. And so when she got to residential school, the administration people took that orange shirt off her, threw it in the garbage, and put on a residential school shirt. As Phyllis got older, she started to have her intergenerational trauma, as many still do today. And every time Phyllis seen an orange shirt, it would remind her of her grandma and her lasting memory. And so Phyllis started her reconciliation personally by wearing an orange shirt. Today, all Canadians will use the Orange Shirt Day to commemorate and to honor residential school survivors. Phyllis's story is one of 100,000 that are still walking with us, beside us as Canadians, and still trying to heal. This summer was very heavy on Cadmus First Nation, as many other people. The story of the unmarked graves is the reality and truth that we all face as Canadians. Yes, we inherited this. Nobody today created the Indian Act. Nobody today created residential schools. Nobody today created the 60 Scoop. But we all have a responsibility to make sure that we play our part in the ones that are feeling the impact of what we inherited. It is not the government's responsibility, as they have one major role to play in this. Every one of us must implement the truth and reconciliation calls to action into our personal lives, into our social lives, into our political lives, into our business lives, or even our government roles. If we all take a little part and we adjust our compasses to make sure that the truth and reconciliation calls to action are being implemented. We are honoring the residential school survivors. Let's not do this to please the few Indigenous staff or the few Indigenous people we know. Do this for yourself. Do this for your kids, your grandkids, your nephews and nieces. If we share this land and are proud of our country, we must also understand we have a responsibility on the history that we inherited. September 30th is a new day in the government of Canada and this country when it comes to honoring and recognizing the truth that the relationship between Indigenous people and Canada has been severed for a while, but it doesn't mean that that it can't be nourished. We all must take a little part of this. And I guarantee you, our kids and grandkids will thank us for the hard work that we put in. Address your policies, address your frameworks, address your truth. Once truth is accepted, which is going to hurt, it's going to be painful, but once truth is accepted, then reconciliation will prevail. I thank you very much for letting me share a little bit with you today on such an important day. Nanaskaman.
You ever seen the rain coming down a sunny day? Yesterday and days before, sun is cold and rain is hard. I know, did not pay for all my time, till forever on it goes, through the circle fast and slow. I know, I can't stop, I wonder, I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? And how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Update, someone stopped to give me fruit.
Thank you. Our next performer is Thomas Cunningham. Thomas Cunningham is a Métis fiddler and school teacher from Regina, Saskatchewan. Thomas started playing and performing music at a very young age with her family. Now she plays music with her partner, Ray Bell, and teaches at music camps and workshops across Western Canada. In 2012, she and her family created the Métis Music Project, in which they teamed up with renowned fiddler John Arcan to record and transcribe several Métis tunes. Thomas has a continuing interest in collecting, preserving, and sharing tunes, dances, and stories that capture the history and spirit of Canadian Métis fiddle. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Thomas Cunningham.
We were very honored to be asked to present here today as part of the virtual honoring. I must admit I was a little worried because fiddle music is so much music about celebration, and I felt that it might not be the right tone for the day. So we're going to start with a waltz, which is a slower, more contemplative kind of a tune. It's written by a Metis fiddler from Winnipeg named Reg Bivette. And then we're going to go on and play some reels that is that kind of celebration fiddle music. We'll play the Lucky Trappers and the Old Reel of Eight, and I hope that it can be a moment to sort of celebrate resiliency of survivors of residential schools who've found joy in life, and also the resiliency of the culture, which is continuing so vibrantly today.
may be asking yourself, how can I promote reconciliation? The residential school system has impacted nearly 7 consecutive generations of Indigenous children in Canada. This is known as intergenerational trauma. Conditions of marginalization, joblessness, poverty, family violence, drug and alcohol abuse, emotional and sexual abuse, homelessness, and early deaths continue to affect many generations of families. Every Indigenous person that you know who is either First Nation, Metis, or Inuit has been affected by Canada's residential school system. Think about that for a moment. Reconciliation can begin by a simple visit to your local Indigenous community or urban Indigenous organization, and by asking, how can we include Indigenous perspectives and contributions in our workplace or in our classroom? Learning directly from Indigenous people is critical to reconciliation. How can you start on your own personal reconciliation journey? Some suggestions include: visit your Indigenous community or urban Indigenous organization, attend local Indigenous events, such as powwows, which are open to everyone, including the general public. Support Indigenous businesses in your community, in your province, or throughout the country. That is an act of economic reconciliation. And there are other small ways that you can promote reconciliation within your workplace or your classroom. And that is things like creating a reconciliation book club with folks in your class, in your workplace, or else in your classroom. We would like to take a moment to recognize the organizations that made today's virtual honoring possible. The 2021 Planning Committee for Orange Shirt Day includes the following organizations: Farm Credit Canada, Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure, Ministry of Parks, Culture and Sport, Multicultural Council of Saskatchewan, the Regina Public Library, SAS Builds, SAS Gaming, SaskTel, Sask Power, and SGI. Today and tomorrow, we hope that you take a moment to honor the memory of the residential children who did not make it home. We also hope that you take time to reflect on the resiliency of those students who did make it home, who have the courage to share their stories and their experiences, not only with their families and their communities, but also with all Canadians. Thank you for joining us today. Panayama, Wopiratonka, merci, and thank you.